We're talking to Mr. RPatton and Mr. MWalker, two participants in the sit-in movement. Before we had our break, Mr. Patton, you were talking about the philosophy in a real sense of the sit-in movement and et cetera. But let's talk about your first sit-in, some of the experiences that you had in dealing with that.
Well, my first sit-in was that it was very calm. As a matter of fact, it did not make the front page. We were way back in the back of the page, and the people, they closed the counter, but there were people who were outside looking in the windows of Crest and Woolworth and those stores and wondering what was going on. And it was a very peaceful sit-in. I was also a part of what we called then the aristocrat of bands, the A&I Marching 100. So I would imagine that there were times when I was not able to sit in simply because of band rehearsals going out of town. But everything was orderly. And we had a very excellent teacher and teachers, not just Lawson, but Kelly Miller Smith played a great and a very important role in the sit-ins.
Very good. And you, Mr. Walker, in reference to your sit-in, you were in the Freedom Rides, and the sit-ins came before the Freedom Ride, I understand.
That's correct.
Is that right? Now, what made you decide to leave after the sit-in? Made you decide to become involved in the? Say something about your sit-in participation, and then how you became involved in the Freedom Ride.
Okay. Well, first thing I have to say about my sit-in participation, I would just like to add a little bit more about those nonviolent training workshops led by Reverend Jim Lawson. We were well grounded in the philosophy of nonviolence and some of the things that Reverend Lawson used to bring us on board as to what nonviolent protest was about was a couple of passages, for example, from Matthew and Luke in the Bible, which spoke of turning the other cheek.
Okay.
Another resource he used was Henry David Thoreau, who had written the essay on civil disobedience, where Thoreau talked about in an unjust society, people of conscience have an obligation, a moral obligation to speak out about those injustices. I think that one of the things he said was that the only place for a righteous person, a person of conscience in an unjust society is in jail. So that was kind of the background. And he also talked a great deal about Gandhi and how Gandhi had used nonviolence. And one of the things that, just to give you an idea about Gandhi's philosophy, is that Gandhi had said at one time that an eye for an eye can end up making the whole world blind. So we were well grounded in a theory of nonviolence, and I think that thorough schooling about nonviolence accounted for the fact that nobody in any of the demonstrations ever retaliated violence with violence. So that's credit to how
it really
well
speaks well of what was going on, especially when you think about the nature of violence. And you can probably tell us, Mr. Patton, about the nature of some of the violence that you met during this movement.
Well, actually, I did not meet any violence at all.
You got put in jail in the Freedom
Ride. I was not put in jail in Nashville. No, but on the Freedom Rides.
The Freedom Rides,
I was in jail, yes.
Well, talk about some of the violence you experienced on the Freedom Rides.
Well, actually, first of all, I think we need to let the audience know that when CORE, the word has been used, abandoned the Freedom Ride because of what happened in Anniston, Alabama, the burning of the bus, and in Birmingham when they beat the riders that were on the bus. And CORE flew into New Orleans, and then they dispersed and went back to Washington, D.C. Well, we were, I think at the time, trying to desegregate the movie theaters downtown, and it happened on Mother's Day, May 17th in 1961. And Diane Nash said, and along with John Lewis and others, and the group decided that we would go on the Freedom Ride. We would continue the Freedom Ride. So on that night that they picked the group, those that were there wrote their wills, wrote letters, made phone calls, because the attitude then was we were not going to let violence keep us from continuing the Freedom Ride. And there was a possible chance that you might not come home because of what happened in Anniston and Birmingham. And we were on our way to Montgomery and then into Jackson, Mississippi. But the only violence to the Nashville students happened in Montgomery.
In Montgomery, Alabama.
In Montgomery, Alabama.
As a part of that,
yes.
As a part of the
as a part of the movement from Birmingham, the bus routes going in. The ultimate, they were supposed to go on into New Orleans, Louisiana, but it stopped in Jackson, Mississippi. And so I think the point was made in Jackson, so there was no need to go on into New Orleans.
Well, now when the participants decided to make out their wheels, and that was a real serious moment in terms of what the whole activity, was it not?
Well, I look at it like this. In Nashville, it was small wars. We had little small battles, you might say, with the stores. We were just getting ready for the big war. And the big war, to me, was the Freedom Rides. Because of the results of the Freedom Ride, it affected this whole nation. Of course, the sit-ins did too. But the Freedom Rides really put the cap, in my opinion, on this whole nation.
Okay, and of course you participated in the Freedom Rides too, did you not, Mr. Walker?
Yes, yes, I did.
Were you incarcerated at one time during the rides?
During the Freedom Rides?
Yeah, during the Freedom Rides.
Yes, I spent a total of 39 days in jail in Mississippi, first at the Hinds County Jail in Jackson, Mississippi, and then at the Parchman Penitentiary. So that was as a result of riding the first bus into Jackson from Montgomery after the Freedom Rides had been stopped by Corps. So we had a lot of police protection going to Jackson. As soon as we got to the bus station in Jackson, we walked into the white waiting room and were immediately arrested and carted off to Hinds County Jail.
Now, it took a lot of courage, and that's one thing I can't get over, because, you know, I never participated in the movement, but I was of age. I was at A&M College in Pine Bluff, Arkansas at the same time. And out of the 2,000 students, as I've said, only 8 or 9 actually participated in the sit-ins and etc. The rest of us were simply terrorized in reference to it. I mean, we were fearful. And because we were so fearful, we made fun of what they were doing. You see, I mean, you know, you try to justify things and whatever and etc. But that's where we were. We were standing on the sidelines for the most of the part, and so the sit-in movements never really had a tremendous impact, but the Freedom Rides and those other movements, because these were dangerous movements, were they not? I mean, people were actually killed in reference to these.
Yes.
Well, what would you say to the young people today in terms of, and we'll be back with following this second commercial break. We're talking to Mr. Rip